Hi, welcome to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. On tonight's show, we'll be talking about sexual harassment and abuse, how to protect yourself, find peace, and thrive. Well, we've all seen the headlines: Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey, Jian Ghomeshi, Harvey Weinstein, even Ottawa's own Matthew Carmichael. All these men have been accused of or admitted to sexual harassment and abuse of men or women. Talking about sexual harassment and abuse can be awkward because, well, talking about sex is awkward. How can you protect yourself? How can you talk about this to your partner and to your loved ones? And if you've experienced this, how can you go on to enjoy intimacy and a healthy sexual relationship? Well, tonight we have an amazing panel of guests who will speak to these issues and much, much more. And if there's an issue that we haven't covered yet on tonight's show, please feel free to call in the number on your screen, 613-728-1001. We'll be happy to hear from you. First, I'd like to introduce you to our first guest, Tanya Locke. She's a support worker at the Sexual Assault Support Center in Ottawa. Her case as a survivor of child sexual abuse was actually featured in the Globe and Mail's Unfounded series. Tanya, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. We also have Ruth Sirman, who's the president of Can Mediate. Ruth is a mediator with decades of experience in sexual harassment in the workplace. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
Later on in the show, we will be joined by Ottawa blogger Mike Reynolds and sexual educator and relationship coach Marie-Claire Thauvette. So stick around for that. Tanya, I'd like to start with you. For those of our viewers who may not be familiar with the Globe and Mail's Unfounded series, can you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Yeah, so the Globe and Mail did a Canada-wide series on the rates of police designating cases as unfounded when survivors come forward. I was asked to talk about my personal experience by Robin Doolittle, and what happened to me was over 20 years ago, I was assaulted by a family friend, and as a result of that, I ended up having a child.
Now, how old were you?
I was 12 and 13 when the abuse was occurring, and 13 when I had my son. Now, my mother went to the police at the time, and they didn't do anything about it. There wasn't actually a complete investigation done. And I do think that there are a lot of reasons why this happened, and one of them is a sort of disbelief when survivors come forward, not only by people in the public, but also by police and different organizations that are there to sort of help people who are going through this, including children as well.
Wow, that's a powerful story. Do you think that if you were to come forward, if it were to happen to you now, do you think the response would be different?
At the age that I am right now?
No, if a 12 or 13-year-old approached police today, do you think the response would be different, or do you think the same flaws in the system are still here decades later?
I think it depends on the child, to be honest, the child's background, their parental family structure. A lot of kids that are very marginalized, that come from different socioeconomic and racial backgrounds, tend to have a reduced response by different authorities, police, Children's Aid Society. Then again, at the same time, some of these agencies see the perpetrator and see their privilege. So, for example, the child in Canada who was assaulted by his father, who was an RCMP officer, and his wife,
I remember that
who
case.
tried to come forward numerous times, but because of the societal status that his parents held, nobody believed him. So it very much depends on where the child's at, the people that are around the child, but also the people that are around the perpetrator, protecting the perpetrator. So that can be anybody from police, for example, in this case, other police officers, to community members, people in the neighborhood, at a church, things like that. And definitely friends and other family members, particularly when it happens in the same family. What I often see and find is that there are so many people that are protecting the perpetrator for various reasons, whether it's because the perpetrator is the breadwinner of the family, or is just sort of an all-around nice guy or nice woman, and people really, they're in disbelief that this person is capable of doing such a thing. At that point, it becomes sort of an accountability on the child. So the child who's been assaulted is the one who bears the shame and the guilt and the responsibility for the assault.
Now, those power dynamics are very much true for the workplace too, aren't they, Ruth? What have you seen in your decades as a mediator in terms of people turning a blind eye?
I think the hierarchy has a lot to do with it. There are an awful lot of people who are very hesitant to come forward if their complaint is against someone who's higher up, you know, their boss, their boss's boss, the owner of the company. And in some cases, it's very, very difficult because although most organizations now have policies, especially larger organizations like corporations and governments and so on, if you're working for a company where the employer is also the recourse that you have available to you, then does that mean that if I have an issue with the employer that I now have to go to them and say I'd like to report a case of sexual harassment against you? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, you know, when you look at it, that there need to be multiple recourse options. There need to be multiple ways that people can get into the process of having it addressed. So I think, you know, have we come a long way? I believe we have. Things have changed dramatically from when I first started into the workforce and when I was a child and what I was taught as a child in terms of, you know, how children were supposed to relate to adults and what was acceptable to do and what it wasn't acceptable to do from the child's perspective. I mean, I can remember as a child being told to make sure I was never alone with a certain individual in our family. It's like, you know, maybe I was 6 or 7. So now it's the child's responsibility to stay away from the adult who doesn't have any boundaries.
And it's only clicked in years later as to why you were told that.
It did. It was quite a long time later when I realized that, you know what, we had somebody in our family who was inappropriate. And I don't think that's an unusual scenario. The thing is that, you know, if you have a child who's a bully on the schoolyard, are they then going to become a workplace bully? If we raise our children to believe that they are not accountable for what they do, then I think we create problems when they become adults. And so you look at that case that happened in the U.S. with the swimmer who raped the woman who was unconscious and drunk. And then the judge came back and said, well, you know, he's such a great swimmer, he has such potential, there's no accountability there. And the father's saying, oh, please, you know, like he's really a good kid. I hate to say this, but your child is a rapist. It's not what people want to hear, but we have this culture of condoning, I think is the way that I would put it when it comes to people in positions of authority.
And it's often up to the victim to do this delicate dance of not ruining the rest of their life, not ruining their chances at that job or promotion that they want, not hurting the feelings of the person who holds a position of power over them. Do you feel that's true in your case and in the cases of the women that you counsel as well, Tanya?
Yeah, absolutely. And that really goes back to what Ruth was saying about accountability and how when we don't hold the perpetrators accountable and when the community as a whole doesn't, it does fall onto the child to, or the woman, to be the one who shoulders all that responsibility. And that includes the feelings of the perpetrator's family, in instances where there are incest occurring as well. It's something that you don't really have somebody to turn to because everybody is sort of surrounding this person with a protective factor. So who do you go to? And in the cases of children who are under the care of child welfare services, for example, this happens a lot with foster parents abusing them as well. Who are they supposed to go to? That's the system that is keeping them in place and keeping them in this situation. And when they do go and try to tell somebody, if there's no evidence, because oftentimes there isn't any physical evidence after the fact, they might tell one person, that person goes and tells the foster parents and sort of gives them a heads up about what's about to happen. There's no evidence, and then the child is put right back into the same place. So people really wonder why kids especially don't come forward. This is one of the reasons why, is because they are often the least powerful in any of the situations, but hold the most responsibility.
I think it's also because we're conditioned to look away when sexual things happen, and the perpetrators know this. Mm-hmm. Would you agree, Ruth?
I was just going to say, it's not just kids. I see it with adults too. I see adults who are questioning, like I hear all the time as a mediator, yeah, I didn't file a complaint. I didn't come forward because, Brenda, pick a name, Brenda filed a complaint a couple of years ago and nothing changed. Nothing happened. It didn't stop. And now Brenda's the one who gets, she's kind of targeted. And so if you think I'm coming forward, and people will just sit there and go, no, I'm not coming forward because that's just going to put some kind of a label on my forehead that I'm a problem. I'm a problem employee. It's a career limiting move. CLM, they call it, a career limiting move. So people find other ways to cope, but they're not necessarily accessing the recourse that should be available, whether they're kids, whether they're adults, whether in a workplace, whether they're in a family. We have laws in place. We have provisions in place. I mean, there are things that are, that fall under the criminal code, like sexual assault and so on. We should be able to access those, and we should have the recourse there. But if the messaging that gets sent out is, yeah, the law is there, but you really don't want to go down that road.
And that's why women often wait as long as they do to report these cases.
And then when it does come out, at least in my experience, and it's often younger generations that will bring it up, because we've raised several generations of kids now who have been taught, you have the right to say no. Your body, the parts of your body that are covered by your bathing suit are yours. If somebody touches those, you don't like it, you can speak up. Tell somebody. We've had that whole messaging that has gone out to kids through the schools, the change in parental attitudes and so on, in terms of, making sure kids realize. And so those kids are now in the workplace. And it's not unusual that they come in and they're, coming up against the type of, often, not sexual assault, but more the harassment end of things, where it's maybe not quite as serious. I mean, serious, but not sort of in the criminal code arena. And they just look at it and go, I don't have to put up with this. Stop. And they speak up. Then they file a complaint, because that's just the way we've raised them. And I've seen this with my own kids. I've seen it with my kids' friends. They have a very different tolerance level. And so then when they file the complaint, all of a sudden you get the other people who start coming out of the woodwork. Well, I didn't want to say anything, but it happened to me. I didn't like it too. And now you've got multiple complainants.
It's amazing how much we're seeing of this. We're just about to go to break, but when we come back, I want to hear about some solutions that victims might have. So we'll be right back.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Celebrate Ottawa is a collection of stories for, by, and about the people, places, and rich history that make Ottawa such a vibrant place to call home. Tune in Sunday evenings at 7:30.
You can find Maud Lewis selling her paintings from the front steps of her little house.
How much?
What's your price?
$5.
Not selling that one.
Already sold.
Martin Ward, RCMP.
David Bouchard, Sorties Québec.
Who?
Suppose I'm out.
As we get older, we all want to live happy, healthy, and maintain our independence. Making healthy choices is one of the many ways we can help make that happen. So grab a water bottle, a towel, some hand weights, and join Anita Finley 6 days a week as she takes you through workouts that will help increase your strength and balance. As well, Ottawa Public Health has some great tips on how you can maintain a healthy and independent lifestyle. Join us for Better Strength, Better Balance, only on Rogers TV.
Join world leaders as they share innovative solutions for the pressing issues the world faces. Watch the One Young World Ottawa Summit exclusively on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. We're talking about sexual harassment and abuse with experts Ruth Sirman and Tanya Locke. Tanya and Ruth, we were just chatting a minute ago about how what's happening right now is actually a positive thing with all these people coming out of the woodwork, all these allegations coming to the surface. It's encouraging a conversation that may not have been as enthusiastic as it could have been a few years ago. What are your thoughts, Tanya?
Well, I think that any amount of discussion about these issues is always a positive thing, because one of the things that a lot of victims and survivors deal with is sort of holding secrets for other people. So the more that we come out and discuss it, then it turns into from a family secret sort of thing, or a secret in the workplace, as you were saying, more into let's talk about this and let's see what we can do to actually make these changes.
Ruth, your grandmother had an interesting saying about holding secrets.
Well, her comment was that everyone has a public life, a private life, and a secret life. And I think that's true, and it speaks to what Tanya was saying earlier around, people disbelieving that the mayor of a town, or the minister or the priest in the church, or the high school principal that everybody loves, or the whoever.
He was such a nice guy.
Yeah, he was. He was such a great guy. But the thing is that the him that I experienced may not be the him that someone else has experienced. And I think the other one that goes along with that, and it was a psychologist who said to me years ago when I first started into mediation, in every interaction between two people there are 6 personalities present. There's me as I see myself, there's me as I really am, or as how you, and there's me at how you experience me. So you get those 3, I get those 3 as well. And so it may be that the vision that one person has of someone is very different than the experience somebody else has of the same individual.
Now, there's different kinds of harassers and abusers. Can you go into that a little bit?
This is my personal observation. I mean, as a mediator, I work mostly with large group conflicts, and I've realized over the last 20-some years that occasionally you come across people who are what I would call malicious harassers. They've got their person or group that they are after, and it's a planned, targeted campaign to discredit somebody, to get somebody to, like they're on a mission. The vast majority of the cases I deal with, though, that's not the case. They're what I would call oblivious harassers. They're individuals who have, over the years, adopted a form of behavior that is problematic for the person on the experiencing end of it. But from their perspective, they may see themselves as being the life of the party, entitled. They have a wicked sense of humor. I had a senior manager say that to me once. Everybody loves my jokes. And I'm thinking, I've just spent 3 days listening to all your employees, and no, they don't like your jokes. And yet in his mind, that 6 personalities, he sees himself as being incredibly funny and completely oblivious to the impact that he's having on other people. And oftentimes when those people are made aware of the impact, they're stunned. Mm-hmm. And that typically will at least initiate a willingness to change when people understand it. The acid test is, does the behavior change? Because the typical response is, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. But then if the person comes back the next day and does the same thing all over again, then
they were never
the apology
really
was a smokescreen.
Yeah. Tanya, what do you think?
Well, I think that, when you were talking about the different types of abusers as well, the same definitely holds up for a lot of the time with people who abuse children as well. And, sometimes some people often say to me, there are so many false allegations and we need to protect the rights of the accused and all of these things. That's definitely true. But in terms of numbers, there aren't actually that many false allegations. And I mean, most of the time when assaults are reported to the police, they have a very strong screening that they do before it gets to the Crown. So sometimes there's just not enough evidence, and the police will say, I believe you, but there's no way that I can bring this to a Crown. There's no way that we can actually get a warrant for an arrest in this case. So definitely when it comes to sort of the false accusation myth, as what I call it, a lot of the time you can see the factors surrounding the situation where it might lead to either some kind of a misunderstanding, or in the cases of parental alienation as well. That is definitely a big factor. So those are things that investigators do look out for, in my understanding as well. But I think that it really paints a picture of sort of women lying and children lying because of these isolated incidents as well. But it's the same with, murder charges, for example. There are people who are falsely accused and arrested and tried for murder. It doesn't mean that everybody who kills somebody is not a murderer.
We actually have a caller in from Linda. Linda, are you there?
I am.
Hi, Linda. Did you have a question for us?
Well, yes. The question is, does a female or a male's choice of what to wear out in public invite sexual harassment?
It's a good question. What do you guys think?
Absolutely not.
It shouldn't. I think it's been used, Linda, as a rationale for dismissing serious allegations that are being made, because it's, if you dressed like that, then somehow you wanted it. Interestingly enough, we have a pretty huge double standard when it comes to clothing. I know with my own experience, I have several kids, and when they were in school, the girls would bring home a letter with a dress code on it. And my question was, where's the dress code for the boys? Well, we can't have the girls wearing spaghetti straps, because that will, that'll be distracting to the guys. And I'm saying, well, okay, but a guy walking around in a muscle shirt, is that not distracting for the girls? Or have the girls been taught that they should be able to manage their reaction, and somehow we've let the boys off the hook in terms of the accountability piece? So I think we need to seriously look at the messaging that's out there. And while I can, my own personal thing is, yes, there are some things that people wear that may invite people to pay more attention to them. I absolutely do not buy that someone's clothing eliminates the potential that they could be actually harassed, or that they could be assaulted simply because of what they were wearing. I don't know what you think, Tanya, but for me, that's just that's a non-starter.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that that's, when people say that, what was she wearing, things like that, it's
besides
just
the point, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's another way actually to take the responsibility for the actions of the person perpetrating the harassment away from them. Yes. So why do we continue to talk about what women do in order to sort of attract attention and things like that, while we neglect talking about the person who's actually doing the harassment?
But that's a key part, if I could just throw some other piece in there. If you look at the stats and you look at the reports that come out, it will say X number of teenage girls got pregnant. It doesn't say X number of men and teenage boys impregnated that many girls. It doesn't say that, when it says, so many women were assaulted, it doesn't talk about how many men assaulted those women, or how many other people assaulted those women, whether they were other women or whether they were men. So I think we need to change the language that we use. We need to start having a more balanced conversation. And that was what was running through my mind when you were talking, is that we need the balance in this, that it allows us to be more realistic and more honest about what's going on, because until we do that, I really don't think we're going to solve too many problems.
We only have a few more minutes left till the end of the segment, and I wanted to talk about self-care. Thank you so much, Linda, for calling in and for watching the show. For our viewers tonight who have gone through something like this, or maybe going through it now as we speak, what are some great resources? What are some things that they can do for self-care? I'd like to hear from you first, Tanya.
Well, one of the major things, especially lately with the hashtag #MeToo campaign, a lot of people have been saying to me that they're feeling really overwhelmed with with this coming into the media all the time, logging onto Facebook or Twitter, and that's kind of all they see. So one of the things that I really suggest is, when you start to get that overwhelming feeling, actually try to really unplug for a bit and, take some time to care for yourself, whether that's going for a walk with your dog, spending time with your kids, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you just need to unplug and focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Ruth?
I think one of the key reactions that we often see is that when it happens, and Tanya spoke about it briefly, is we have a tendency to question ourselves. We have a tendency to go, did he really say that? Did he mean that? We second guess ourselves, and then we rationalize all the reasons why we shouldn't speak up. You know, it'll make me a target, it's going to be horribly uncomfortable, you know, nobody's going to believe me, whatever the rationalization is. I would invite people to do the cost, risk, benefit analysis in the other direction as well. What happens if I don't speak up? Then what? If I'm still in this job, or I'm still in this position, or I'm a child in foster care and I'm going to be at this home until I turn 18, or however long I'm going to be there, it's not going to go away. And so if we choose not to speak up, then because everybody has a piece to own in this. If I choose not to speak up, then the message I'm sending is, it's okay. You know, I'll put up with it.
And I think it's important to remember, too, that men can be victims as well. They're not always the perpetrator, and I think there's a double standard there that we need to address. What do you think, Tanya?
Well, we do know that women and children are the majority of victims, but also men do get victimized with sexual abuse. Date rape, for example, is another way, very common, that men are abused by men and women alike. I think that in Ottawa there actually are not enough resources for men who are trying to come forward, but I mean, there is Family Services Ottawa, which has a sliding scale for individual counseling sessions. That's a really good resource.
Family Services Ottawa?
Yeah, and also reaching out to find other men who have experienced similar things, especially online with, you know, Facebook chat rooms, things like that. It's very easy to find sort of a larger community of people with your same experiences. So I would say for any men who are watching, if this is something that's concerning you and maybe people are not talking enough about men who have been abused, there are actually a lot of men who have tweeted out Me Too as well, which is for me, I think gives me a lot of hope that we're going to be able to continue this conversation and including everybody who is affected by sexual violence.
Right. We're almost at the end of our segment. Ruth, where can we find you? Where can employers find you, or people who want some advice on the workplace issues?
www.canmediate.com. So you're welcome. Anybody is welcome to give us a call. Have I got time to throw one small piece in?
We just have a few more seconds left. I want to thank you ladies so much for coming on the show and for the courage in having a conversation about an issue that people are still finding very uncomfortable, but talking about more increasingly, which is extremely encouraging. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. We'll be right back after the break with blogger Mike Reynolds and sexual educator and relationship coach Marie-Claire Thauvette. Don't go away. We've got lots more.
Some talk about this, and it's going to materialize here. Chmielewski, shot scores! Shot scores! What a shot!
67's action on Rogers TV.
I am 31 years old. I am on the double lung transplant list. I hear it all the time. You don't look sick. It's one thing to deal with the physical symptoms of PH, but because I don't look sick, I also have to deal with that.
Pulmonary hypertension is a rare, life-threatening lung disease. There is no cure, but treatments are available. Talk to your doctor about PH if you are experiencing these unexplained symptoms. It could save your life.
We are celebrating in a big way.
Discovery's free preview is on.
He's coming in hard, he's coming in hard.
Just hooking up a truck here is like life and death.
Come hell or high water, I'm gonna beat that kid Parker.
Let's go to war, boys.
I want Declan Harp's head.
I'm the boss. I think I am.
Discover life without limits. Discovery. Free preview on now.
My name is Bara Adi and I'm a volunteer at Rogers TV. I love most about volunteering that I do give back to this community, and I love the experience I'm gaining. This is my major and I really do love it. I do it with passion. As a newcomer, I wanted to feel that I fit in the community It's made me more confident and it's improved my communication skills.
Hi, welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're continuing the conversation on sexual harassment and abuse that's been dominating the headlines lately. I'd like to introduce you to our final guest of the show. First, we have Marie-Claire Thauvette, owner of Relationship Bliss. She is a board-certified sexual educator and a relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining us, Marie-Claire.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. And next we have Mike Reynolds, who is a blogger at everydaygirldad.com, who writes about parenting, the relationship between dads and daughters, and challenging what masculinity means. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to ask you both a question. As an educator and as a parent, would you both agree that if we can't talk more freely about sex and about intimacy, then we won't really be able to stop sexual abuse? Marie-Claire, I'd like to hear from you first.
I think it's really important to have an open conversation. It's important to talk about how you're feeling also. Let's say you've been abused in the past or harassed in the past. It's important to talk about that, because then you can share your ideas, but not to always stay in the past, because talking to more and more people will bring you back there, and that's something that could be hurtful to you and even to people around you, but it's important to get help. So therapy is really important, so I would say that's the way to go in that case. What are your thoughts?
I'm sure banking on it being a key tenet of parenting is having a open relationship with both of my daughters. I mean,
how old are your daughters?
5 and 7 right now, and to pretend these conversations and these questions aren't in their head already is I mean, it's false, because I mean, we have all kinds of great conversations at any time that my daughters come up with things that they're interested in. So it's part of trying to raise body positive and sex positive children, is to have these conversations regularly and to not create stigma and taboos around, you know, diversity of bodies and how their bodies develop and everything. So, and I think these honest conversations about how our bodies do develop and how we develop as people is part of that relationship that I have with my daughters.
And you obviously think that starting early is the key to success?
Yeah, as they have questions, we don't turn the questions away and say, why don't you come back to us with that in a year? We address them as we can with our kids at the ages they are, basically. So it's a bit of a challenge to navigate, the kind of terminology that they would use at 5 and 7, but you realize that they understand concepts a whole lot better than people tend to give them credit for. So
yeah, it's not like you're telling them, when you grow up, I'll tell you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Marie-Claire, tell me about your journey and how you got into your line of work.
Whoa. So when I was young, I was actually sexually abused by a family member and by my priest. So that was a hard blow for me growing up.
How old were you?
From when I can remember, and up until I was about 12 years old. So don't feel sorry for me, though, not for 1 minute, because that's what's bringing me here, and I want to help others. I was at a point where after that, I was really, really insecure, and I didn't think I was very smart. And I did go through therapy, and that's what I'd recommend that people do. And when I went through therapy, they were fantastic, and I want to encourage people to go that route. And that really helps people with what's going on in their heads. It's helping them to realize that they are not victims. But then we need to get into our bodies, because our bodies feel the fear. Our body feels the pain of the past. And that's where the work has to be done. We need to dig really deep and let all of that out. And I really believe that it's important for us to be centered into our bodies, love our bodies. That's the work that needs to be done, and that's part of the work that I do.
So what do you do today?
So I offer workshops, I offer weekend retreats for women, and we have so much fun in those retreats. We work on so many things to really give women confidence. We have so much fun. We help to deal with difficult people, and we do a lot of body image work. It depends what the needs of each group is, but the women that come have a great time, and by the way, 2/3 of them typically have been abused in the past. So
2/3, wow. So,
yeah.
So women who have had a difficult past tend to seek out your services?
It seems that way. It seems that way, and the fun thing is that in the last weekend that I've had, they're all coming back. All of them are coming back because they left high. They started loving their bodies again, because that's a big issue if you've been abused. So loving their bodies again, having energy to move forward, because very often when we're abused, we're thinking in the past a lot. We're telling our story, and that you need to tell your story to your therapist, but you need to move forward also. I think we talked a little about that, how important it is to move forward, right?
Mike,
So,
as a father, as a husband, as a man, what do you see as your role in this conversation?
Today we've talked a lot about the stories that survivors share, and as was talked about in the previous segment too, there is a lot of passive language that does allow men to kind of escape. So what we see time after time is men expressing their shock and dismay. Is it really this bad? And yes, it was this bad last time we told you, and is this bad this time as well? So at some point it becomes, what are the steps you're going to take to address it? And I think that what men have to do is realize that a lot of the reason that nothing changes is because we are so passive about it. We don't do a lot. So not just, it's more than just not sexually assaulting and not sexually harassing. It is also calling it out when you do see it. It's little things like people that will tell a sexual assault joke around, you know, the table of guys, and you just let it pass because you're like, it's just a joke, it's nothing big. But it's an entire culture and a continuum of like violence that perpetuates itself the more that we allow it to kind of go unchecked. And I think that that's a big part of kind of, again, when I talk about trying to challenge what it means to present your masculinity or to produce masculinity, it is to call people on these things that people do say, you know, the locker room talk or the boys will be boys stuff is like, that isn't the way that we want to be, and that's not the way we are, and this is wrong, and I'm ready to try to make change this way. So it's interesting talking to, because I do have 2 daughters, seeing the difference between the way that we raise daughters and sons. And I think that we tell our daughters to be, you know, strong and brave, and they are strong and brave. You don't have to do a lot of work, but
yeah, we're just bringing up some pictures on the screen right now of some of the work you've done in the community with your little girls. So
yeah.
What's going on in here?
And so this was at the Women's March. So
okay, girls can do anything.
Exactly, and this is the message that girls do carry with them. And the reason that I've been trying to kind of challenge the masculinity side is because we tell this to girls, but what we don't tell to boys the same way is that it is okay to cry, it's okay to be gentle. And that's some of the messages that we do need to talk, and that strength isn't just physical strength, it is being emotionally strong. And emotionally strong doesn't mean withholding emotion, it means being supported in the emotions that you share.
What do these t-shirts say? I run like a girl to keep up.
Yeah, try to keep up, that one is. And so, yeah, and some of the other ones are the lines of shirt that I've created myself. Again, the challenge, I used to see a lot of the dads against daughters dating shirts,
yeah,
and, you know, the anti, you know, dad's single role of daughters as being a protector, right?
Yeah, and getting out the machine gun when
exactly.
the daughter brings her first boyfriend home.
It's the stuff that people see and they say it's just a joke. Every time that you tell them that this is not the message we need to be sharing as fathers, it is the lines of openness and lines of communication versus the let's try to threaten everyone. And then again, the other thing is, if what we think is in the heads of a teenage boy is that they're going to perpetuate sexual violence or they're going to intimidate people, why are we not trying to change what it means to be a man versus threatening them into, you know, not doing that to this one person so that they'll go find their next victim? So a lot of it for me is trying to be a better role model about what masculinity can mean. So
we have a caller on the show. Ellen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Ellen. What's your question?
I wanted to know about body image issues. What suggestions, Marie-Claire, would you have to improve these?
That's a great question. I guess that topic comes up very frequently in the workshops and retreats that you do.
It does, and I just want to put it out there that most people have body image issues, so it's normal. And it's important for us to love our bodies and to know that the body parts that we dislike, I think to give that body part some love is really important. For instance,
sorry, if you've been abused or harassed, are you more inclined to hate your body?
Yes, exactly. And to say positive things about your body is really important. But you know what? Body image is widespread. Everybody has that, but it certainly is worse for women that have had abuse. So my solution for that would be to love that part of your body. So what I did was I put my hand on my belly, and I would say positive, because that's a part of my body that I didn't like a long time ago. Now I'm really good friends with it. But I would say to myself, positive affirmations. I love you. I'm going to take care of you. You can count on me. And all of a sudden, my relationship with my body started to change. So positive affirmations are really, really important. And to be, to try to free yourself from that by using positive talk. So the self-talk that you give yourself, stop the negative talk, change that to positive talk.
It's easier said than done.
Easier said, but you know what I do? I have my women use a word like switch or turn it around. And you could say the opposite. Even if you don't believe it in your head, say it, and you're going to come around. And you could put stickers all over the place. A lot of therapists have you do that, where you'll say positive messages to yourself. So that's another a way for you to start believing that. And studies show that if you have negative body image about your body, you will not enjoy initiating lovemaking. Mm-hmm. And you'll be thinking about your body parts while you're making love. So that's really important it's important to be in the moment when you're making love to your partner. And that I do a whole workshop on helping women to get in the moment, to be mindful, to really focus on their bodies, loving themselves, connecting with their bodies, so that they can really get into their bodies and out of their head, and to really feel the connection with themselves or with their partner.
Mike, how do you talk to your daughters about body image at this young age of 5 and 7?
It's actually one of the things that me and my partner both struggle with the most. As someone who, again, I have body issues as well, so it is something that I struggle with internally, and it's something that we are trying to find the balance of how do we manage our own body image issues with encouraging our children to love their bodies as they develop. So we don't talk a lot to our kids about our own body issues at this point. We've managed them between the two of us at this, but it of all of the things for us to talk about as parents is one of the things that I lack the most resources in, to be honest. It is an incredibly difficult discussion to have, not to tell kids that they should love their bodies, but to talk about how their dad has issues with his body at the same time while he tells them to love their bodies no matter what they look like. So it is a challenge I've had. It's
important for parents to watch the way they talk in front of their kids. And if they say, "Oh, I'm gaining weight," or "Oh no, I'm not looking so good in this outfit," we have to be really careful, because kids start to have that. They mimic what we say, and
monkey
they'll have
see, monkey do.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're about to go to break, but I'd love to continue this conversation when we come back. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Anything at all. He's that strong.
Joe Schuster, will you stop it or you'll miss your train? Now help me find number 5.
Strong, but by day he's a mild-mannered reporter. Glasses, a secret identity.
Honestly, you Canadian kids.
He'd be in this cape.
A what?
A cape, wearing these blue tights.
A hero in tights, really. Here it is.
Listen, Lois, this guy is faster than anything, I swear.
If you're not fast, you're gonna miss your train.
That's it. A bullet. He's faster. No, he's faster than a speeding bullet.
Come on, get on it. No one's gonna read a comic strip about a strong man in tights, Joe. It'll never fly.
Fly, no. But he can leap over tall buildings. Oh, wow, yeah.
See what your cousin Frank says in Toronto.
Oh, wait, Lois. I've got something for you. Take it. It's a gift. You never know. It might be worth something someday. he great or what? Bye-bye, Lois.
He has my eyes. He has his mother's cheekbones. He has her competitive nature. He has my weird sense of humor. He has her love of reading. He has my oxycodone.
Some things should never be passed down. Lock up or turn in your prescription drugs. Learn more at secureyourmeds.ca. A message from Drug Free Kids Canada.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Kathy Donovan, host of Refresh Your Passion, a speaker series for people who want to do more, be more, have more, and share themselves more in the world. Refresh Your Passion, only on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. We're joined in the studio by guests Marie-Claire Thauvette and Mike Reynolds. Thanks so much for joining us on the show tonight. Marie-Claire, you talked a lot about the importance of finding a good therapist. Can you share how you chose your therapist to get over some of the abuse that you experienced in your childhood?
I just looked it up back then. It was in the phone book. Yeah. But I had an amazing therapist. I remember her, Pat G's from Carleton Place. She was fantastic. But today you can go to bestco.info. That's bestco.info. And there you'll find a sex therapist specifically that can help you with any kind of sexual abuse
that you've had in your past.
Yes, exactly.
And so once you've gone through some of that therapy, you have some tips and tricks for self-care if you've gone through that in your life to sort of get back into your body and appreciate it.
So often you just want to be there and make love to your partner because that's your job as a partner, right? But it's more important for you to start loving yourself and to take care of yourself. And a really good way to do that is to have a bath. So, and make it a beautiful ritual where you'll have a glass of wine or herbal tea or something like that, bubbles and candles, and make it an intimate, sensual experience for yourself. And touch yourself and really feel your body, really feel the connection. That's a way for you to get into yourself before you can be with a partner, because often we want to get there, but when we get there without being into our own bodies, often people that have been abused, they're picturing themselves looking down while they're making love. Like you're not really there, you're not in the moment, you're not present, you're disconnected from your partner. So having that whole ritual is really going to help to do that. I'm thinking that having positive thoughts about wanting to get there is also very good. Talking to your partner about how you're feeling and to have sort of a red light if it's gone too far, or even a yellow light if you're getting there, and green if things are really good. And I would say it's important to go really slowly and let the person that's easing into this be the leader. So they would say what they want to do. As a matter of fact, on my website starting tomorrow, I'm going to have a game. It's a dice game where you can write down yourself on the dice what you'd like to do. So you throw it up in the air, it lands, and this is what you're going to do to your partner or to yourself. You decide.
You've actually written a book that's coming out soon. Tell us about it.
It's called The Honeymoon Playbook, and it's not just for honeymooners. It's for anybody that wants to really improve their relationships. I have some games in there that would be great for people that are trying to improve their sexual lives, to go really slowly, because you have to have fun. It's really important to enjoy yourself. That way you can get into your body and have fun. So this is the new you. This is the you that's going to go forward positively, and to bring a game that's at first not too sexual, but connecting would be really important.
It's about intimacy first.
Exactly.
How long did it take you to get to such a positive place in your own life?
Wow. After I did the therapy, I went back to school, and that really, really helped me I told myself, I'm intelligent, I can do this. And the whole time I was studying sexuality because I really wanted to become the person that I wanted to become in my head. So so it took me, it's so gradual. It's so hard to really pinpoint. But I'd say after 2 years of therapy for me, things started to really shift. I started belly dancing.
Okay.
So to dance is really important to get into your body, into your sensuality. That was a really important part. And then I was studying the whole time, and I got excited about the power that I felt for myself. And that's what I want for women out there and men. I want them to feel that they're empowered, they're in charge of their sexuality, they're in charge of their desires. This is our birthright. Mm-hmm. We can have this pleasure, this connecting piece with our partner. So that's what I teach. I teach all things sexual. I want couples to come by to my workshops so that they can get together. And you know what I've learned from men? I've learned that they really want to please their women. And I was really surprised. I don't know why I was so surprised to learn that. And they really want to make things work with their partner, and they don't really know what to do. They don't know what steps to take. So I'm there to help them with that journey.
You brought up an important topic briefly, the importance of consent with the red light and the green light signals. And that's a segue to a question I wanted to ask you, Mike, in terms of what you teach your daughters, even at this young age, about the importance of consent. Feeling free that you can say no to a hug, for example.
Yeah. This is one of the areas that there are so many points in your life that you can teach the concepts of consent. Like, it doesn't have to be sexual consent when you're talking to your children too. It's just the idea that they have autonomy over their own bodies. I've written before about things that you notice as a parent too when you ask for a bedtime kiss and they say no, you don't force your bedtime kiss onto them. And there's the very traditional parts of hugging relatives and kissing relatives when they leave places. And so it is a conversation with your kids that they're there, but it also gives you the ability to have the conversations with adults too, to say these are their boundaries, we are allowing them to set those for themselves, and then you can kind of offer options for navigating through that. So they don't want to kiss, do you want to give a high five or something? So it's giving them options, letting them know that understand that they are the ones who can say no. And I'll be honest, in talking with our kids too, it's not just telling them that they can say no. With our daughters too, we need them to understand that when the situation presents itself, when they're being told no, they need to be listening to that as well. And these are things that when you sit down and look at it, you have these kind of conversations 15 times a day when it comes to taking pictures of your kids. There's so many things that you can do to make sure they understand that they are the ones who control their bodies and they are the ones who make these kind of decisions about them.
I'm just noticing your shirt that says "Strength has no gender."
Yes.
It's very interesting. And do you make those shirts for charity?
Yeah, I started a t-shirt line, I guess, almost a little over a year ago now, basically to combat a lot of the messages out there that portray dads mostly as this protector. And, basically the way that it presents itself is that you are the physical protector of a daughter. And I think it kind of treats daughters like inanimate objects, and it also treats dads like unemotional, hammers kind of thing. And what I wanted to do was kind of fight these ideas of, dad standing with the prom date with a gun and say, look, the way that I'm raising my kids is through building open relationships, like we talked about at the start, and that doing this now builds that foundation to have these discussions with things. And that if dads are so upset and are so worried about what's going on in the mind of teenage boys, that we need to take a look and say, well, maybe I should be portraying masculinity differently. So this is a lot of what this t-shirt line is meant to do, to say men can be emotional, men can have discussions with their daughters, men can have conversations with sons, and it's kind of just trying to shift the idea of what it means kind of to be a man, right? So
we have a few minutes left till the end of our show. Marie-Claire, you had some ideas on the role that men have to play in the relationships with the women who seek out your services.
Okay, I alluded to a little bit of that before. It's really important for men to go slowly and to listen to their partners, and in the meantime take care of themselves too, because your sexuality is also very important, and to seek out help on exactly how to go about what baby steps can you take, but to take things really slow. And I would say I have a game on my website where we're talking about foot massage and how to build sensuality with foot massage, to go really slow and work your way up very, very slowly and to listen to the message. I think that's huge, and that's very important to build the connection and the trust.
Do you ever have clients, female clients, who are in relationships with men who have experienced sexual harassment and abuse?
Yes, I've had lots of women that have had that, and once they could learn that they can have fun in their lives and not think about the past all the time, that's when they moved forward, when they were able to play, have fun in their bodies. That is really important. We do that in our weekend spa workshops, or weekend spa retreats. It's really important to do that, and it's important for men to send their women there because they're going to come back on fire for them.
Oh, that's where you hold your retreat, right?
Exactly.
At this cottage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how often do you do that?
Every season.
Okay.
Once a season.
And do you have one coming up soon?
In January.
In January.
The last weekend of January is my next retreat.
Do people register online on your website?
They can register on my website, yes,
Okay.
at relationshipbliss.ca.
And that's where we can find those games that you mentioned.
Yes.
Where can people find a copy of your book?
It's going to come out, I hope, by Christmas.
Good Christmas gift.
Yes, it's going to be a great Christmas gift, and it's a great gift for somebody who's going on a honeymoon, a wedding, a shower gift. And it's great for anybody, really. So anybody.
Can we find it at Chapters or just online through your site?
Yeah, you're going to be able to find it online on Amazon.
Okay.
So it should be there. Hopefully by Christmas, you'll be able to give that Christmas present to your loved ones.
Wonderful. Any other upcoming workshops that you wanted to mention before the end of our show tonight?
I am going to do a workshop for women that have experienced abuse in the past. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to work with the women for 2 hours, and I'm going to bring the men in for the last hour. So that could be really, really helpful.
Powerful.
Yeah, powerful, I think.
When is that happening?
That's going to happen also in January, and it'll be on my website as of November 2nd.
Fantastic. Mike, we only have about a minute left till the end of our show. Any final thoughts that you wanted to share with our audience?
No, I think a lot of the discussions that we have focus on the roles that men can play. Like, I think that's a lot of what I like to talk about too. I think one of my favorite expressions is that men don't need to be given a space in feminism. They need to take their space and make it feminist. And I think that it is in those areas where we have men gathering that we need to be having these kind of discussions. And it can be awkward to bring it up, and it will be awkward when you start calling out people's jokes, but I think it's incredibly important in the greater scheme of things. Calling out someone's joke as a part of this culture around sexual harassment is a very small step and a very small risk you take for yourself to be able to play a bit of a role. So I'd love for men to just get involved in those discussions when they are around other men, and let me know how it goes. So that's what I try to do, and I'm always learning new ways to talk to the men around my life, and I'm always learning new things to be bringing to those conversations. So.
And do a lot of research on the topic too, right?
Yes, yeah, for sure. And there are so many experts out there already putting this information. So that's what I try to do, is gather this and present it to a lot of the people who have chosen to look to me for some of this information.
We're at the end of our show. Thank you so much for coming into the studio tonight. We'll see you again next week.